Are you ready?
Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where negativity spreads faster than light. It latches onto the mind like a shadow, whispering doubts, fears, regrets, and imaginary catastrophes. But what if I told you that this darkness has no real power unless you permit it? Perception is everything. This is a central doctrine in Stoic philosophy, and one that holds the power to transform the way we experience life. According to the Stoics, the events that occur in our lives are not inherently good or bad. Rather, it is our judgment of them that shapes our emotional response. Two individuals can undergo the exact same circumstance, yet one may remain calm while the other is devastated. The difference lies not in the event itself, but in how it is perceived. This is why Epictetus declared, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In a world where we cannot control much of what happens, this concept gives us back a profound sense of control, the control over how we choose to view and interpret those events. When something goes wrong, a relationship ends, a job opportunity slips away, a dream is delayed, the common response is to label the experience as negative. We automatically assign emotional weight to what is essentially a neutral occurrence. The Stoic, however, pauses and withholds judgment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This is not denial or emotional numbness, it is disciplined perception. It is refusing to hand over your peace of mind to external events. The Stoic mindset recognizes that pain is real, but suffering is optional. The moment we change our interpretation of an event, we change the power it holds over us. Imagine a person walking in the rain without an umbrella. One curses the weather, laments their luck, and spends the rest of the day angry. Another laughs, walks calmly, and accepts what they cannot control. Both are wet, but only one suffers. This is the power of perception. This is what it means to command your internal world, even when the external one is chaotic. The Stoic does not depend on perfect conditions to find inner peace. The Stoic creates that peace through clarity of thought. Perception is not a matter of being naive or overly optimistic. It is about aligning your thinking with reality and stripping away the emotional drama we so often attach to events. Seneca advised us to rehearse misfortunes in our mind before they happen, not to invite them, but to train our perception so that we are not caught off guard by life's inevitable difficulties. If you prepare yourself mentally for loss, pain, failure, and change, you are less likely to be shaken when they arrive. You will have already cultivated the mental habit of rational response, rather than emotional overreaction every moment. We are forming opinions about what we see, hear, and experience. These opinions are not automatic truths, they are learned reactions. You were taught to panic when things don't go your way. You were conditioned to feel inadequate in the face of rejection. You were trained to worry endlessly about what might go wrong. The Stoic unlearns this. The Stoic recognizes that if perception is a habit, it can be reshaped. Like a muscle, it can be trained. Each time you challenge a negative thought, each time you stop yourself from reacting with anger or despair, you are exercising the muscle of perception. The modern world bombards us with stimuli that try to manipulate how we think and feel. news headlines, social media, advertising, all designed to provoke outrage or make you feel lacking. But you are not a puppet. You can take a step back and say, "This is not under my control. I will not let it disturb me." That detachment is not indifference, it is self-mastery. It is refusing to be emotionally hijacked by things that do not matter in the long run. A Stoic sees the same world as everyone else, but through a different lens, a lens polished with reason, philosophy, and mental discipline. When you train yourself to perceive events through the lens of Stoicism, you begin to develop what the ancients called the inner citadel, a fortified mind unshaken by external chaos. This does not mean you become robotic or cold. It means you respond with clarity, not confusion. It means you act from principle, not panic. In any given situation, ask yourself, what part of this is in my control? What is simply an impression that I'm overvaluing? What would a wise person do in this moment? These questions interrupt the automatic response of negative perception and bring your mind back into alignment with truth. To kill negative thinking, one must first examine the lens through which life is viewed. If the lens is clouded with ego, fear, or fantasy, then the picture will always appear distorted. The Stoic cleans that lens daily through reflection, journaling, silence, and reasoned thought. The world outside may be turbulent, but the mind within can remain clear. The only thing that belongs entirely to you is your mind, and within that space you are sovereign. Your perception is your reality, and your reality is your responsibility. You are not your thoughts. This simple idea, often repeated in modern mindfulness circles, was deeply understood and practiced by the ancient Stoics. Epictetus reminded his students that thoughts are merely impressions, transient appearances to the mind, not commands. In Stoicism, the individual is not defined by the content of their thoughts, but by the way they choose to engage with them. You can observe a thought, challenge it, ignore it, or accept it, but you are never obliged to be ruled by it. Thoughts come uninvited from memory, instinct, fear, desire, or past experience. They arrive whispering stories, both beautiful and terrible. But a Stoic does not confuse these passing visitors with truth. Most people live in a state of unconscious identification with their thoughts. They think a sad thought and believe they are sad. They imagine a fear and believe the danger is real. But thoughts are not facts. They are suggestions, often flawed, frequently irrational. A Stoic cultivates the inner observer, a mental distance that allows one to see the thought without becoming the thought. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often wrote in the third person, as though watching himself from outside. This was not literary style, but mental training. He was teaching his mind to separate the thinker from the thought, to see with clarity rather than react with emotion. In the Stoic view, the human mind is a rational faculty surrounded by impressions. These impressions can come from the senses, from memory, or from imagination. The impressions themselves are not harmful. What causes harm is the premature acceptance of them as reality. A negative thought, for example, may arise, "I'm a failure." A Stoic does not accept this thought immediately. Instead, the trained mind says, "This is an impression that has appeared. Is it true? Is it useful? Is it under my control?" Only after rigorous examination does the Stoic decide whether the thought deserves attention or dismissal. One of the most powerful practices in Stoicism is the art of withholding judgment. When a thought arises, a fear, a craving, a worry, the untrained mind reacts impulsively. The Stoic waits. The Stoic lets the thought pass through the mental space like a cloud in the sky. There is no need to argue with every thought, no need to suppress it violently, no need to indulge it. By merely observing it without judgment, the Stoic weakens its power. Over time, the mind becomes calm, disciplined, and free. Many people carry around a constant storm of mental chatter. They think in loops, reliving past mistakes, dreading future problems, imagining worst-case scenarios. But the Stoics believed the present moment is all that truly exists. Thoughts about the past are memories. Thoughts about the future are predictions. Neither is real. The only real thing is your reasoned choice in the present. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most of the pain we experience comes not from what is, but from what we think about what is. If we can see thoughts as mental noise rather than truth, we can free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. You are the master of your inner world. Even if you cannot stop thoughts from arriving, you can stop them from taking root. Imagine your mind as a house. Thoughts knock on the door. You are the gatekeeper. You do not have to invite every thought inside. You do not have to let fear sit on your couch, or let regret raid your kitchen, or let anger sleep in your bed. You can say, "Not today." You can watch them knock, then watch them leave. This is not repression. This is discernment. The Stoic does not deny emotion. The Stoic simply refuses to be enslaved by it. Modern neuroscience supports what the Stoics intuited centuries ago. The brain creates thoughts automatically, often as a survival mechanism. But just because a thought exists doesn't mean it's valid. Stoicism trains us to interrupt the reflex of belief. Just because you think you're unworthy doesn't mean you are. Just because you think you'll fail doesn't mean you will. Just because your mind screams this is the end doesn't make it true. The mind can be dramatic, theatrical, overly cautious. The Stoic recognizes this and responds with reason, with calm, with clarity. A disciplined mind does not eliminate all negative thoughts, but it learns to disarm them. It learns to stand firm in the face of mental storms. It learns to create space between stimulus and response. In that space lies freedom. Freedom to choose how to think, how to feel, how to act. That is the core of Stoic philosophy, not to control the world, but to control your response to it. And that control begins with your relationship to thought. When you understand that you are not your thoughts, you begin to reclaim the authority you've unconsciously given away. You begin to live with intention rather than reaction. You begin to think like a Stoic. Train the inner citadel. This phrase, drawn from the heart of Stoic philosophy, refers to the mental fortress every individual has within them, a stronghold of reason, clarity, and resilience. Life is unpredictable, full of changes, losses, insults, and challenges. The Stoics understood that the only safe place is not a castle built of stone, but a mind fortified by wisdom. The inner citadel is not born with you. It is built brick by brick, thought by thought, discipline by discipline. It is your ability to remain calm when others panic, to remain principled when others compromise, to remain free when others become enslaved by passion and impulse. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the Roman Empire during times of war, betrayal, and plague, often spoke of retreating into the inner citadel, not as a form of escape, but as a return to what truly belongs to him, his character, his values, his ability to reason. While others sought relief in luxury or distraction, he sought strength within himself. This is the Stoic way, not to eliminate all pain or misfortune, but to prepare the mind so well that these cannot harm it. Just as a soldier trains for battle, the Stoic trains the mind for life, which is full of battles of a subtler, more personal kind. To train the inner citadel means to take responsibility for your mental condition. You do not leave your mind unguarded, open to every passing thought or emotion. You do not allow fear, envy, rage, or self-pity to wander freely through your consciousness. You post guards at the gate of your attention. You question every thought that enters. You ask, is this helpful? Is this rational? Is this under my control? If the answer is no, it is cast out. If yes, it may stay, but only under supervision. The mind becomes disciplined, not by chance, but by consistent effort to bring it into alignment with reason and virtue. Building the inner citadel requires daily work. The Stoics used journaling to examine their thoughts, prayer, like meditations to remind themselves of eternal truths, and negative visualization to prepare for adversity. They imagined the loss of what they loved, not to become cold, but to appreciate it properly and avoid panic when change inevitably arrived. They reflected on insults not with rage, but with analysis. Why does this affect me? What part of me feels injured, and why does it matter? They observed emotions as symptoms, not masters, signals of something deeper, often distorted, that required examination, not indulgence. A strong inner citadel is built in times of peace, so it can hold in times of war. If you only seek mental discipline when crisis hits, you are already too late. The Stoic trains every day in moments of irritation by choosing calm, in moments of temptation by choosing temperance, in moments of confusion by seeking clarity. Each choice is a stone laid into the walls of the citadel. Each rejection of an unworthy thought is mortar. Each courageous act is a tower. Slowly the fortress rises, and with it your freedom from external control. No one can build your citadel for you. Not your family, not your friends, not your government, not your culture. These can support or hinder you, but the labor is yours alone. Stoicism teaches personal sovereignty. You may lose your job, but not your judgment. You may lose your health, but not your dignity. You may lose everything that the world can take, but if your citadel is strong, you will still possess yourself. That is true wealth, true freedom, and true strength. Most people live at the mercy of circumstances. Their emotions rise and fall with praise and blame, gain and loss, good weather and bad, but the Stoic remains steady. Why? Because their citadel is internal. It is not dependent on recognition, applause, comfort, or stability. It is self-contained, not in an arrogant way, but in a deeply grounded way. This stability is not given by birth, but earned through trial, reflection, and philosophical discipline. It is the result of hundreds of moments where you chose to rule your mind instead of being ruled by it. Training the inner citadel also means preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Not in fear, but in acceptance. You remind yourself daily that loved ones may be lost, fortunes may fade, health may break, and time may run out. This is not pessimism, it is realism, and when those things do happen, you are not destroyed. You are shaken, perhaps, saddened, but not shattered, because you built something within that does not depend on external conditions. This is what makes the Stoic unbreakable, not because they feel nothing, but because they have built something stronger than fear and sorrow, a mind that understands what truly matters and holds fast to it. No matter what comes, memento mori, remember that you will die. This is not a morbid obsession with death, but a Stoic reminder meant to awaken a deeper sense of clarity, urgency, and perspective. The purpose of this thought is not to depress the mind, but to sharpen it. In a world full of distractions, trivial anxieties, and endless desires, remembering the certainty of death cuts through the noise. It reveals what is truly important and exposes what is hollow. The Stoics believed that to live well, one must first understand that life is finite. Every second that passes is a second that will never return. Time is not just money, it is life itself, flowing away whether we notice or not. When you reflect on your mortality, your priorities shift. You no longer waste hours arguing over meaningless things. You stop clinging to the opinions of people who do not matter. You begin to see that much of what causes stress and worry is insignificant in the face of your eventual death. Petty jealousy, comparison, fear of failure, these lose their grip when you remember that the clock is ticking for everyone, rich or poor, young or old. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, wrote in his journal that we must live each day as if it were our last, not in reckless indulgence, but in sober awareness. This awareness, he believed, gives power to every moment, every word, every action. The modern world often encourages people to avoid thinking about death. It promotes the illusion of endless tomorrows. People are urged to live as if they have unlimited time to chase status, fame, comfort, and approval. But the Stoic chooses a different path. The Stoic wakes up each morning with the silent thought, I may not see tomorrow, not out of fear, but to intensify their commitment to living wisely today. They greet the day not with entitlement, but with gratitude. Every experience, even the painful ones, becomes more precious when viewed against the backdrop of mortality. Memento mori is a discipline of the mind. It does not mean you dwell on death constantly, but that you carry it quietly with you. Like a compass, it keeps you oriented. When temptation arises to waste time or to be consumed by negative thinking, you remind yourself that life is short. You ask yourself whether your current action is worthy of your limited time on earth. Is this argument, this fear, this distraction worth it? Would I still be doing this if I knew I had a week left? These are not easy questions, but they are honest ones. They burn away illusion and force you to confront what matters. Seneca, one of the great Roman Stoics, wrote often about death, not as an end, but as a measure. He argued that life is long enough if lived wisely, but most people, he said, live as if they are going to live forever, only realizing their mistake when it is too late. They spend their lives accumulating things they cannot take with them, chasing goals they never truly valued, postponing their real desires for some mythical future where everything will finally be perfect. The Stoic sees through this trap and chooses instead to live with presence and intention. When you remember death, you become kinder, more patient, more courageous. You realize that holding onto anger is foolish, that fearing embarrassment is childish, that wasting time is a form of self-betrayal. You begin to live with depth rather than speed. You listen more carefully, speak more honestly, love more fully. You recognize that every goodbye could be the last, that every sunrise is a gift, that every breath is borrowed. The fragility of life makes it more beautiful, not less. A flower is more precious precisely because it will soon wither. A moment is more powerful because it will never return. The Stoics also used memento mori to prepare the soul. Not only must we live well, but we must learn to die well. That means accepting death not as a punishment or a failure, but as part of nature's design. Just as we accept the seasons, we accept our end. The Stoic believes that death is not evil, for it comes to all and is outside our control. What is evil is to live dishonorably, to waste our days, to forget what we are. Death is the boundary that defines life, the silence that gives shape to the music. Without it, meaning would dissolve by contemplating death. The Stoic seeks to become free, free from the fear that cripples action, free from the illusions that distract the soul, free from lies that time is abundant and forgiveness endless. When you know you will die, you begin to live with sincerity. You stop pretending. You start choosing. You realize that life is not about how long you exist, but how deeply you experience the time you are given. Death is not a distant shadow to fear, but a teacher that walks beside you, whispering gently in your ear, helping you see clearly what truly deserves your attention. Virtue over emotion is one of the most essential principles in Stoic philosophy, where the quality of one's character matters more than the intensity of one's feelings. Emotions are natural, but they are not always trustworthy. They rise quickly, often without reason, and demand immediate obedience. The Stoics taught that emotions, especially the destructive ones such as anger, envy, fear, and excessive desire, are the result of poor judgment and distorted thinking. Rather than submitting to every emotional impulse, the Stoic aims to align their life with virtue, wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control, because these are enduring, stable, and within one's control. A person ruled by emotion is like a ship without a rudder, tossed in every direction by changing winds. One moment they are confident, the next they are filled with doubt. One insult can ruin their entire day. One disappointment can throw them into despair. This person is not free, no matter how much wealth or success they have. They are a slave to feeling. The Stoic, on the other hand, is unmoved by shallow praise or harsh criticism, because their goal is not to feel good, but to be good. Virtue is not concerned with mood swings or emotional storms. It is built on clarity of purpose and steady self-discipline. When the Stoics say that virtue is the only good, they mean that a person can only live a fulfilling life if they are governed by reason, integrity, and moral strength. External things, riches, fame, reputation, health, are indifferent. They may be preferred or unpreferred, but they are not necessary for a good life. What matters is how one behaves regardless of the circumstances. You may be poor and virtuous, and you are happy. You may be wealthy and vicious, and you are miserable. This is because happiness for the Stoic is not an emotion but a state of inner harmony born from living in agreement with nature, which is to live in accordance with reason. Living by virtue requires effort and intention. It is not about suppressing feelings, but about understanding them, examining them, and choosing not to let them dictate your actions. If someone insults you and you feel anger rising, the Stoic does not pretend the anger is not there. The Stoic observes it, questions it, and chooses not to act out of it. Is this insult truly harmful? Does it affect my character or just my ego? Will responding in anger improve the situation or harm it further? These questions shift the focus from emotion to reason, from instinct to choice. Seneca taught that emotions are like wild horses. They can run freely and trample everything in their path, or they can be tamed and directed by a skilled rider. The rider is your rational mind. The horses are not evil, but they are dangerous when left unchecked. The goal is not to become cold and unfeeling, but to become composed and deliberate. A Stoic feels sorrow, but does not become consumed by it. A Stoic may feel desire, but does not allow it to override judgment. A Stoic may feel fear, but does not flee from duty. Emotional awareness is part of the Stoic path, but emotional obedience is not in moments of crisis. When emotions run high, the Stoic turns inward and asks what virtue requires. In the face of injustice, the Stoic practices justice. In the presence of fear, the Stoic practices courage. When tempted by comfort or pleasure, the Stoic practices temperance. When confused or unsure, the Stoic practices wisdom. These virtues are not feelings but decisions. They do not depend on how one feels in the moment, but on what is right. In this way, virtue acts as a compass, guiding the Stoic through emotional storms without being swallowed by them. Modern culture often encourages emotional expression without restraint, suggesting that to feel something strongly is to be authentic. But the Stoic questions this assumption. Is authenticity merely the expression of impulse, or is it the deliberate choice to act with integrity despite impulse? The Stoic chooses the latter. Virtue is a form of strength, not a denial of humanity, but its highest expression. To live virtuously is to use emotion wisely, not to be used by it. Feelings come and go, but virtue remains. It is not reactive, but proactive. It does not wait to be provoked. It acts from principle. There is dignity in restraint. There is power in not giving in to every emotional demand. There is freedom in living by values instead of moods. The Stoic understands that the most important victories are often invisible, choosing silence over retaliation, patience over complaint, humility over pride. These choices build the character that no external force can shake. They are the quiet acts of moral strength that form the foundation of a resilient, meaningful life. Virtue over emotion is not a rejection of humanity, but a refinement of it. It is the path of those who seek not only to live, but to live well, to be calm in the face of chaos, disciplined in the midst of temptation, and just when it would be easier to be cruel. It is not always easy, but it is always within reach. because it depends not on what happens to us, but on how we choose to respond. This is where true freedom lies, not in the absence of emotion, but in the mastery of it through the quiet, persistent practice of virtue.